2012, Jyoti, a 23-year-old medical student in the city of Delhi, India, got on a bus with a male friend after they'd watched a movie. The bus driver suddenly shut all of the doors, and next thing they knew, 6 young Indian men assaulted them with rods in their hands. Jyoti was raped repeatedly. Her internal organs were so severely damaged that 2 weeks later, she died. Just 4 months earlier, on August 11, 2012, a 16-year-old girl in the town of Steubenville, Ohio, walked into a party at her friend's house. Her name was never released to the press, but let's just call her Emily. She drank too much alcohol and eventually passed out, but later that night, 2 high school football players dragged her into a basement where they repeatedly raped her. Fortunately, Emily survived her injuries. As an Indian American, hearing stories like these on the news has been nothing less than horrifying. Now, when I go to parties in my hometown in the United States, I am sometimes afraid. Now, when I go to India to visit my grandparents, I find myself looking over my shoulder even if I'm not alone. I am relieved to come back home, but ironically, women may be less safe in America than they are in India. According to the Washington Post from January 7, 2013, a woman is sexually assaulted in India on average every 20 minutes. In the United States, the average is every 2 minutes. And these are only the reported cases. So yes, I am afraid. We all should be at least a little afraid. Why in 2013 is violence against women an epidemic all around the world? Why does it continue? There is no one simple answer, but when we take a deeper look at global cultures, the baseline remains the same. Violence against women stems from a culture of objectification. Today, women all around the world are viewed as objects, and they are raised to believe that this is normal. In the next few minutes, let's take a look at how this attitude plays out in India and the United States. We'll see how these 2 countries encourage us to view women as objects before finally looking at some ways to break free from these primitive attitudes. As Mark Twain once said, India is the land of dreams, of 1,000 religions and 2 million gods, mother of history, grandmother of legends, and great-grandmother of traditions. Though rich, India's culture is also very conservative. According to the Christian Science Monitor, January 28, 2013, India is a place of deep-seated patriarchal norms. In fact, the article cites a study that found that 57% of adolescent boys in India think that beating a wife is okay. Even more frightening, 53% of girls the same age agree that beating a wife is okay. More than half of adolescent girls condone their own mistreatment. The heart of the problem is objectification, because in far too many traditional Indian families, boys and girls are raised to think of women as objects, as the property of men. In fact, Robin Shrita, a waiter in a beach bar in Delhi, claimed in a March 2012 Guardian interview, "When the girls look sexy and the boys can't control themselves, they are going to rape." It happens. As in, it's normal. At a first glance, it seems like the American and Indian cultures are radically different. Yes, the United States has made significant advances towards gender equality, yet, as we just learned, women are more frequently assaulted here than in India. How is this possible? In 2013, we Americans live in a digital culture of mass media. From TV to Facebook to Netflix to magazines, all of it saturated with advertising. Caroline Heldman, associate professor at Occidental College, argues that media these days deliberately pitch ads and campaigns with provocative images of women, seducing viewers to buy their product. She said, "With each image you are hit with a simple subliminal message. That girls' and women's bodies are objects for others to visually consume. We all too often see ads like the one recently released by St. Pauli Girl, which featured a woman in the form of a beer bottle, and the caption read, 'Drop Dead Refreshing.' The company created an association between the attraction to beer and the attraction to women. Her body was presented as an object. Author and speaker Jean Kilbourne argues that the media's objectification of women is what makes it easier for us to imagine owning, manipulating, and abusing them. Dolce & Gabbana recently released an advertisement featuring a young woman lying on the floor with little clothing and a man kneeling on top of her. She was surrounded by a group of large men. In essence, this advertisement depicted a gang rape. Kilbourne said that images like these create a cultural atmosphere in which violating women isn't a big deal. If this all sounds theoretical, all we have to do is look at Steubenville. The two boys didn't think of what they were doing as a big deal, even though male onlookers videotaped the scene, laughing and saying, "She is so raped right now." According to CBS News, the boys didn't think they were committing a crime punishable by jail time. How could they not know this? Because they were raised in a culture that tolerates the assumption that women are playthings. We are raised to believe that women are objects. But obviously, this attitude prevails in cultures all around the world, not just India and the United States. According to the World Health Organization, 70% of Ethiopian women reported physical and/or sexual violence. According to PBS NewsHour, in Guatemala, on average 2 women are killed every single day. According to the South African police, 1 woman is raped every 36 seconds, and I could go on. Violence against women is everywhere, and it starts with the assumption that women are objects. But obviously, a problem this deeply rooted in our society isn't going to be solved overnight or even in a generation. There is no perfect fix, but the first step in solving it is acknowledging that there is a problem. Realizing that violence against women isn't just happening in underdeveloped countries, but rather that it's happening right here in our backyards. In Steubenville, in Boston, in Birmingham. As Martin Luther King once said, "We will remember not the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends." After Jyoti's death in India, millions of civilians poured out into the streets, protesting the injustice and speaking out against the violence. Stella Paul writes in February's Huffington Post, "I feel as though I am watching a billion people wake from a deep slumber. It's as though a silent, voiceless India has suddenly found its voice. We need to speak out. I feel a responsibility to reach out to the women of India and help them in their battle, in our battle. Because individually and collectively, we have power. We have the power of social media to upload a picture on Facebook or tweet support and encourage those who decided to take a stand. We have power to donate to charities like Plan India to help rape victims. We have the power to speak out. And it's especially important that we speak out right here at home in the United States, both men and women. It's our responsibility to call attention to the absurdity of advertisements like the St. Pauli Girl campaign. It's our duty to stop buying from companies like Dolce & Gabbana and to write letters to them to express our outrage. It is the most practical way to show businesses that the objectification of women will not attract customers, but will rather lose them. Today, I chose to talk about just 2 of the many nations on our planet. India and the United States have different cultures, values, languages, and traditions, but one thing remains the same. Women are treated as objects. You know, Emily and Jyoti, they could have been our sisters, our daughters, our friends. They could have been you or me. So the time to stand up and speak out is now, to acknowledge and tackle the problem of objectification so that someday in the near future, women will no longer live their lives in fear.